Hello and welcome today to another episode of the Christian Construction Podcast. On this episode today, we're going to address and we're going to hit it head on the subject and the issue of all of the civil unrest, the violence, the looting, the rioting, the protesting that's going on across our country today. So you stay tuned to today's episode. All right, we're back today. Thank you for tuning in and for being a part of the podcast today. And I'm here with my friends, Brother Keith Norman and Brother Matt Panther. Brother Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm just trying to get this coffee in my system so I can get up, get excited, and get aware of everything that's going on in this world that we're in.
So everybody knows this coffee's being drunk at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right, I just rolled out.
It's been a wonderful day.
America, land of the free. So anyway, appreciate Brother Matt being here with us today. And then Brother Keith, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Brother
I'm
Michael?
doing well. Did you have a good lunch?
I did. I'm full as a tick. I'm ready to. I need some coffees here soon. Or find a place to nap. One of the two.
Well, I just do both. I drink my coffee, then I take a nap right after that. So. I tell you, our world's changed a lot. I say our world, I mean the world that we three collectively live in and are used to operating in. Normally, on a day like today, at the time we're recording this, it's Sunday afternoon, we would be in bus church, preparing buses to go out. Actually, we would already be in bus church, and you guys would be preparing your buses to go out. I would probably be in the invitation right now, fixing to dismiss the ones that I'm usually with. And so Saturdays and Sundays have changed quite a bit for us. I mean,
Drastically.
Yeah.
normally, what would your Saturday consist of before now, brother?
Before now, I would either still be visiting, and most of the time, even if I wasn't visiting, I would still be doing some sort of church function. By the time, our bus meeting is not usually over until 11, and then we go on our bus visits, and a lot of times after we go knock on new doors, we go visit our regulars, and that takes about all day on Saturday.
Sure.
So that's my Saturdays anymore. I have found that I am quite the fan of trout fishing.
And that usually, the way we were used to it being is our Saturdays would really take off about 9:30.
Yes.
And they would crash and burn somewhere around midnight. No, somewhere around 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And even then, by the time you got done doing everything you was doing, you'd be trying to point towards tomorrow by either preparing for something you were doing in a Sunday school class or on your bus route, or if you were preaching bus church, or all of us have carried different parts and been in different parts of that ministry. And so
by that time, you've promised your bus kids we're going to have this and this and this on
So
the bus.
you
got to put feet on those promises, and you're at the grocery store.
every
7,
Dollar
8 o'clock
General
on
between
Saturday
here and
morning.
Gastonia.
There ain't no candy within 20 miles of the
Make it look
radius.
Like the day after Easter.
You got to go to Charlotte to find a bag of candy.
Well, it has drastically changed for us, but as of right now, our church, at the time of this recording, we're still not having Sunday school and have not started back with our choir, but we are having service Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, practicing social distancing as best we can. And anybody that is sick, has been sick, come in contact with somebody that's sick, we are asking those people to stay at home. We still have a good bit of our people that are watching online, elderly people who have had sickly conditions in the past or have just come off of some type of surgery. And so we're trying to be careful. Pastor, I believe, is the Lord's given him wisdom about us how to deal with it. And every church is different. Wherever you go to church at, following the leadership of your pastor, we hope that you're supporting every decision that's being made where all of this is concerned. Today we want to discuss an issue. It's unique to us in the fact that we've not seen anything quite like this since we've been doing the podcast. Now, in the past, we had seen, I remember being a little boy, which has been a long time ago, and I remember, the Rodney King stuff in L.A., the L.A. riots back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then as we moved on up into the 2000s, we really didn't have anything like that until in the past 10 years. We have had some things flare up from time to time. We had the Michael Brown incident out in Missouri. St. Louis, and then you had, of course, we had a gentleman who was breaking the law in Charlotte, and when the police were trying to deal with this guy that was breaking the law, they, in the process, had to kill him because he would not obey what they were asking him to do. And, of course, in our area, that caused a lot of problems as far as stuff flaring up and all of that. Now, some may wonder, how does that work when you have a bus ministry? You're picking up inner city kids. You're picking up kids from different backgrounds. So we never had any trouble in our church, in our bus ministry. And so we do thank the Lord for that. However, the situation that we're dealing with right now in our country, and that our leaders, our president's dealing with, and that even the ones that are not dealing with it are still dealing with it. They're just dealing with it differently. This is a whole totally new type of response to I guess you would say, to maybe police brutality or a bad apple or whatever you want to call it. This is a totally different response in these days than I have seen in my lifetime, and I'm sure in these guys' lifetime as well. And of course, we're talking about the issue, the thing that happened in Minneapolis. I don't want to call it an accident because it happened on purpose. That guy meant to do that, meant to hurt that guy, and then so. All of this is really stemming from the murder of George Floyd by the police officer Derek Chauvin, who has since already been convicted or accused of murder swiftly, and then the other three officers obviously have I believe lost their jobs and had already been charged with, I think, second degree or something had already been charged also with some type of part in the whole crime that took place because of their standing by and not doing anything. And so all of this, we've seen rioting, we've seen looting, we've seen protesting, some peaceful, mostly not peaceful, mostly violent. It's in New York City, it's been in Washington, D.C., literally on the front steps of the White House. It's been in Florida. It's been in Georgia. It's been in nearly every state that I know of across the United States, and especially across the 48 that are right here on the mainland. And so that's what we want to address today. And I want to start by reading some verses out of the book of Ezekiel. And I think this kind of fits. Now, understand that this is the Lord talking to His people because of their disobedience to the Word of God, because of their disobedience in not helping the people of God. And so this is what God said to Israel in a time when He was really needing somebody to stand up. This is what He said to him. The word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto her, Thou art the land that is not cleansed, nor rained upon in the day of indignation. There's a conspiracy of her prophets in the midst thereof, like a roaring lion, ravening the prey. They have devoured souls. They have taken the treasure and precious things. They have made her many widows in the midst thereof. Her priests have violated my law and have profaned mine holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and profane. Neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. Her princes in the midst thereof are like wolves ravening the prey, to shed blood and to destroy souls, to get dishonest gain. And her prophets have daubed them with untempered mortar, seeing vanity and divining lies unto them, saying, Thus saith the Lord God, when the Lord hath not spoken. The people of the land have used oppression, and have exercised robbery, and have vexed the poor and needy. Yea, they have oppressed the stranger wrongfully. And I sought for a man among them that should make up the hedge and stand in the gap before me for the land, that I should not destroy it. But I found none. Therefore have I poured out mine indignation upon them. I have consumed them with the fire of my wrath. Their own way have I recompensed upon their heads, saith the Lord God. Now, I understand that God is speaking to the people of Israel, the children of Israel, but He's also talking about the condition of a nation. And He's talking about Him wanting these people to turn back to Him. And in the midst of Him telling what's wrong, God is making sure we know it's a spiritual problem. And by the way, in the country that we're living in right now, it's a spiritual issue. If you'll watch the episode before this, I made an episode and we just simply entitled it, Why This Generation Doesn't Know God. The reason for a lot of this is not a skin problem or a skin color. It is a sin problem. And so that's at the root of all of this. It's where the protesting, it's where the looting, it's where the rioting comes in, it's where the agenda that's being pushed, it's where all of that comes into play at. And so here in the text, there are some practical things that are going on here in the book of Ezekiel, and a lot of them I find it interesting because it's similar to what we're seeing. Widows being devoured, the treasure and the precious things are being taken. There's putting no difference between the holy and profane. I've seen church buildings get burned up in the middle of all this. They're shedding blood to destroy souls, to get dishonest gain. They're preying on the weak and the lowly and those who cannot fight back, who do not stand a chance. And so in the midst of all of that, God is saying, I'm looking for somebody who will stand up and do something about it. Now, we're just three voices. We're just three people. And what can we do? Well, I might not can go to where they are and stop them physically, but I can cry loud and say, that's wrong. That's never right to do what they're doing in the name of justice or social justice or whatever you want to call it. It's not right to do that. And so today that's what we're going to discuss. We want to talk about some of the things that are going on, what we have seen, and then honestly, can we just give you a common sense perspective? You don't even have to be saved to understand. You don't even have to be a Christian to understand the wrong and just the immorality and everything that's so terrible about the way that America and the American people, when I say that, I mean the ones who are burning down buildings and stopping on interstates and protesting, the way that all of this makes no sense. It's not going to fix anything. Brother Matt, won't you give us some thoughts or some words concerning all this?
Well, I think I would start out by saying you were talking about, it's not a skin problem, it's a sin problem. For our very nature, it is common to man to love another man and to love another human being.
Right.
I think about little babies. You put 10 3-year-olds in a room, they don't hate each other.
No,
they want to play with each other. They want to spend time with each other. They might have fights and afflictions. So, but, you put 2 little 3-year-olds together and they love each other.
Yeah.
It's not common to man to hate someone because of race. But what is common to man is the sin nature.
Sure.
What is common to man is not simply the ability to sin, but the lack of ability to do right without Christ. There's nothing within us that drives us to do good, nothing within us that drives us to do the right thing without salvation, without the Lord. And, as I look at what's going on today, it reminds me a lot of when I was a child, before I got saved, each and every one of us, to a lesser or greater scale, took advantage of the situation we were put in to sin. Most of these people, the only reason that they're participating in everything is they're not scared of what's going to happen to them. Right. That there is a crowd that started it that may have taken the abuse when it first happened, but most of these people are just joining in now because they're taking advantage of the opportunity. They can't arrest
all of us.
Right. Yeah. They're in situations now where people are able to manifest the sin that's within them. It has nothing to do. It's funny to me. The police they don't never hurt anybody, but every 4 years. Every 4 years, they
during an election.
Yeah, during an election year, every 4 years, they really they just hate people. But. Anymore, there's no way you can say that the rioting has anything to do, maybe in the beginning, but, I think the saddest part to me about the situation, all this, I guess, really started with the George Floyd.
Yeah.
But it would have been one thing if George Floyd would have died and a judge in Minneapolis would have swept it under a rug, would have exonerated those men, and would have acted like nothing ever happened. But if you study the timeline compared to timelines of other cases and other situations,
History.
right? Compared to history, justice could not have been served more swiftly than it
the
was.
swiftest.
Right. It would be impossible for anything to come down the pipe quicker than it did. So it'd have been one thing. Would I have agreed with the rioting if, it would have been swept under the rug? No, it's still wrong.
Right.
But I would have understood it a whole lot more.
Yeah.
The flesh side of me would have understood things a whole lot more. But you can't even process this with racism when the system was the one that took care of the problem as soon as it happened,
right,
and as quickly as it. So it's crazy to me,
right,
to think anymore. People, the Black Lives Matter movement, people are using this now just as a opportunity to expand or to use their flesh in ways that they were scared to do it before.
Right.
But they're not worried about getting reprimanded.
One of the things that you just said is part of a statement we've heard. Well, the system is broken. Systemic racism, profiling, all of this, but that doesn't make sense for all the rioting. It doesn't make sense for the burning down of the buildings. Like you mentioned, as soon as they got the chance, everything went in the right order, and it was the swiftest, it was the quickest conviction on a police officer for a murder in U.S. history.
Yeah.
I mean, they slapped it on there. It happened just like that. If they, like you said, if they had swept it under the rug, if a judge had tried to hide it, make it all go away, totally different. I'm like you. It don't make it right to do all that, but I could go with them a little ways and go, man, those people are hurting. But that is not the way it happened. Yeah. It is not the way it happened. And what people refuse to understand is that when you have human beings, you will have bad apples. There will always be racism. There will always be people. There will always be prejudice. There's always going to be not just prejudice. Some of it. To some people, to them, it's just, this is just my preference. It's not that I'm racist. It's not my preference. It's just what I prefer. They're not outspoken. They don't hate people, but they don't want to do it necessarily the way the world says you ought to do it. And every person that lives in America ought to have that God-given right to do it however they want to within the bounds of the law. And so I think it's crazy to throw it all on the system is broken. The system worked pretty good, and it worked pretty fast.
It's amazing to me that they say, well, we want to defund the police and then start a new law enforcement. What you going to call it? The police? I mean, what? And it's not going anything that you end and begin throughout the history of time. Anything that you try to end, you're bound to repeat it. History repeats itself over and over again. So you can defund the police today, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. Probably as soon as it begins, you're still going to have bad apples.
Still going to be correct.
You're never going to clean it out.
That's right.
You've got it begins in the heart. The heart of man is sinful.
That's right.
And until you can change the heart of every man, you're not going to change the culture, the sin nature, and you're not going to purge the police.
It's just going to be that way, Brother Keith.
If I could just say this, us three are not here, totally against the protest. I believe that with our freedom comes the right for every person to protest.
Absolutely.
What we're talking about, though, specifically is the rioting and the looting. And one thing I was thinking about all of this as they was talking, and I think about how great our freedom is. It's not just how a good thing for me, but I'm talking about it's a great big freedom.
Yeah.
But I believe that'll come with our freedom will come with a little bit of responsibility.
Right.
Our Bible talks about John chapter number I believe it's 8:36. I've got it turned here. If the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. But then I've got it, my phone over here at Galatians 2:21, where it says, where Paul says, "I do not frustrate the grace of God, for it is righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead. Or if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain."
Right.
So he's free. I'm free as Christ lives in me, I am free. But if there's a responsibility that comes with that,
Right.
I do not frustrate the grace of God. There's that Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, that all gives me a freedom, but the
Right.
responsibility that I
Sure.
have is that I'm not costing somebody else the same freedoms, and that's what these people all are doing. The shop owners, the business owners, the police officers, these people's lives. We talked about it just
They're
before we
burning
opened.
down their own livelihood.
Yes.
That's similar to a message Brother Voles preached here at the church. He was talking about liberty.
Licensed liberty.
Licensed liberty.
Yep.
And he gave the illustration, one that I'll never forget.
Driver's
the,
license.
The driver's license. Talked about, I've got in my pocket right now a license to go out here on the highway and drive freely.
Yep.
These people are no longer protesting. What the protest should be about is equal treatment.
Sure.
Man's created equal, and if you live in this country, we should have the same freedoms,
Absolutely.
same laws. So if I go out on this highway, I've got freedom to do that, but I don't have freedom to do 85 and a 55.
That's right.
I don't have freedom to pass somebody in a no pass lane, and I'll face the consequence for that. These people don't want liberty and freedom. They don't want to be treated equally. No. They want to be treated better than what the system allows.
Right.
They don't want to live within the bounds of
If
society.
these people wanted justice, they wouldn't be burning down a police precinct.
No.
Because, I mean,
they already got. I mean, wouldn't you say they've already gotten justice according to what we would consider justice?
There's nobody I respect more than somebody that'll peaceful protest, because that police officer was wrong. Derek Chauvin was wrong.
Yep.
He shouldn't have done what he did. He should be in jail. I believe personally, and I'll say this on air, he should receive the death penalty. That's
think
biblical.
So. I believe
that's what he should believe, or that's what he should receive according to the Bible. And people that are protesting police brutality, I'm 100% for you.
Sure.
For true police brutality. Yeah. But when you're rioting buildings, you're no longer protesting police brutality. You're protesting a system that you want to be a part of.
That's right.
You want to be a part of that, and the reason that you're so angered and so riotous about it, simply because that you're not allowed to do what you want to do within the system, not because the system's broke, but because it doesn't fit you.
Goes against what you want.
It doesn't fit what you want.
And so these are usually the same people who are trying to legalize drug use,
right?
Who would like to legalize marijuana. These are the same people who would lessen the penalty on certain crimes, such as B&E, breaking and entering, misdemeanors, things like that. And so you hit the nail on the head, Brother Matt. It's not that they don't want some kind of law. They just want the laws that work best for them. They want all that to fit them better. And wouldn't we all like
Sure.
I wish sometimes that it said that the speed limit was 55, except for people that are driving white F-150s that are in a hurry to get where they need to go.
Right,
Wouldn't that be great if it worked that way? But it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what this crowd wants. They want all the laws to cater to them. Let's go through a quick timeline real quick of some of the things we've seen just in the past couple of weeks. One of the things that we've seen happen at the time of this recording, it happened on yesterday, and that was an officer in Atlanta, Georgia, was at a Wendy's, was called to a Wendy's. There was a gentleman in the car sleeping. As they approached him and tried to engage and talk with him, the man became violent, became hostile. They couldn't deal with him, so they deployed tasers. And somehow in all of that, the guy got the taser away from the police officer. It was dark. He was running away from them, but turned and pointed the taser at them. All I had heard from the police officer's statement was that they could not tell if it was a taser or a gun. But when he turned and pointed at him, taser or gun, either one. If he's got a gun, he can kill him. If he's got a taser, he can pretty much paralyze them or stop them, and then he could do God knows what to them in that moment.
Right.
The officer shot the man, killed him, stopped him in his tracks before he done something else crazy. The mayor of Atlanta immediately fired both of these officers. Last night we saw it on the news. The people in Atlanta that were not protesting but were down there rioting burnt a Wendy's down. God bless Dave Thomas, and I love the Carolina Classic and all I love it Baconator fries. They burnt a Wendy's down. While all the while there were some other protesters who, whether or not we agree with this, we were talking about this before we went on the air, who had stopped traffic on I-75, I believe it was, and were out there protesting. They were peacefully protesting, even though I think it's against the
Breaking the
law.
law.
Breaking the law. I think it's against the law to be out in the streets, protesting or not protesting, protest on the sidewalk. But regardless, they were peacefully protesting. I mean, but at the same time, you had these guys over here burning down a Wendy's. You had the mayor firing these two officers on the spot without looking at footage, without giving these guys a chance. That is the kind of justice that this crowd wants.
Yeah.
They want to, before anybody gets a chance to review anything, they're done immediately. I mean, best I can tell, that's mob justice. And I thought lynching laws across America were done away with years ago.
Right. That's right.
And so I think it's sad, very sad where our country's at. In Seattle,
Well, the only thing about it is they believe that they're making the police better, but all they're doing is making it worse because the
weakening
good
it.
men don't want to get
the
in.
good ones don't want to fool with it.
Yeah, they all across the country today, people are getting out. They're finding ways now so that they can find
Police
other
captains
jobs.
are
They can-
resigning.
left and right. You know,
right.
all the good men. I don't know a ton of police officers. I don't know a ton of county workers, but the ones I do, every one of them are trying to find a way to get out.
Absolutely.
Because their families are scared. They're scared themselves.
That's right.
Because, whatever they do is wrong.
Anything, they can't win.
There's no good option for them. And I would be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
If I was in their situation, I'd have quit 2 weeks ago. I would have quit a long time before that, probably.
Well, you look at that situation in Atlanta, and now granted, there might be something come out by the time this goes to
Sure.
air that tells a whole nother story. But I just gave you the facts as I had heard them give to me through the news, which is not the end all be all, but that's the facts that I had heard. If I'm in that same situation, how do you do anything different than that? What is that officer supposed to do? So he can't win. So if you're one of these officers that says, we can't win no matter what we do. I am destined to be killed.
You've got one or two options: shoot the man, stop him in his tracks, and keep him. Probably go to jail for the rest of your life, or allow yourself to be paralyzed and probably killed. You're probably going to get killed if you let him tase you.
Absolutely.
It's a sad day that we live in that somebody would even consider touching the police, the law. That it is
absolutely.
If we could say it this way, and we say it like this all the time, it is the authority that we can see.
Right.
I mean, people say, I guess they'd call me a wimp. I get pulled over and I'm shaking.
I still do.
There ain't nothing.
I think it's a godly, reverential fear that our parents instilled in us, no matter what background you come from. We all three come from three different backgrounds. I think I feel the same way. When I see them come up behind me with them blue lights on,
I'm 5 under.
I'm upset.
I'm not
man.
even trying to bridge the. If one of them's behind me, I don't try to teeter tot the law. I get under it.
What about the mess in Seattle? Have you seen any of it?
I know them protesters over there on 3 blocks now.
They have basically set up a no cop zone. And have taken over.
Autonomous, is that what they're calling
Autonomous, yeah. And Lord, it is an absolute nightmare. And you talk about the burning down of the buildings, the businesses. You've got people with BLM, Black Lives Matter, who want the law enforcement and are asking these people kneel down before me. I think there was a Georgia State trooper I saw this week. They wanted him to kneel down, and he said, "I don't kneel to anybody but God." And they said that the whole place just erupted. Like, finally, somebody said something against this crowd that makes sense. As far as Black Lives Matters goes, one of the statements that I made on last week's episode was that this whole movement is not about Black Lives Matter. This is not about Black Lives Matter. And one of the reasons I think that that's evident is in the fact that there's not near as many people that are black that are with this movement. I have seen as many black people, as far as in the news, against it as I have seen for it. And so I don't think the Black Lives Matter movement is about black lives. There are as many white people, Asians, Latinos, Hispanics marching out there as there are any other denomination, color, background, whatever you want to call it. And so we were talking before we went on air. I personally believe, and was watching a commentator who was giving the evidence for this, it makes sense. Black Lives Matter is not a movement as much as it is about to be a political party. And that makes as much sense as anything else we've seen. They want to defund the police so that they can start their own
Create the
police.
platform.
Yeah, they don't believe in not having police. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gates up around their house. They wouldn't have a security detail, because that will come up eventually. And the crowd, the left crowd that is going after this, that's making as big a show out of it as they can, and obviously they're politicizing it. All they're doing is they are setting things up, I think, to create another party, political party. And of course, I think that will then do away with the Democratic Party altogether. And that's going to be your Bernie Sanders, socialism, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's where all of that is moving towards, and the Black Lives Matter movement, along with Antifa and all that stuff, is all going to be a big melting pot for one large political party. And so to me, it just makes sense that may be, and if that's so, then that's going to split the country in a sense. You're going to find out that there's more people that think that these people are right than what we even imagine.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a scary thought. That's a scary thought. Brother Matt, those verses in 2 Timothy chapter number 3 that kind of give us a description of the last days. I think one of them in there, is it despisers of those?
Despisers of those that are good.
That are good, yeah. And that's the thing about it. People like us that are not hurting anybody, they're not trying to cause any trouble. It's not just that these people want to do wrong. They want to hurt those that are doing good. And I think that's evident in the fact of burning down people's businesses, burning down their own businesses of their own people in their own towns without regard to anybody or anything else.
I saw that without natural affliction too. All of this falls in that.
Every bit of it.
I don't know how I can look at somebody and not regard them as a human, like somebody just goes and takes somebody's life. Number one, yes, I disagree with this Chauvin, the Minneapolis deal.
Sure.
But then any murder since then has been without this. It's without natural affliction. It is signs of the times.
Many of the crowd, they cry for equality.
Sure.
But they don't want equality. They want what we have, and for us to be where they're at.
That's right.
They just want to replace the roles. They don't. They say we want to have all the opportunity you have. You want to take our opportunity. You don't want us to keep it. You don't want us to, those that are doing good.
Right.
No, I'm not saying, those that are against you. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
We believe.
I believe they ought to have a chance just like us.
Right.
But
I believe. You should have just as much of a chance, but I don't believe you should have a better chance than me.
No.
No man should have a better chance one way or the other. But equality is equal. It's the same.
Yes.
And that's no longer what they're crying for. It's for a lawless government.
Reparations.
Where they can have what they want without work, without responsibility, without law and order. And, if we lose it, oh well. Their gain is our loss. That's what they don't want everybody's gain.
No,
they want their gain. And, I believe that falls into the last days, as 2 Timothy 3 says, without having natural affection. Natural man, Brother Keith, I want you to have your hopes and your dreams and your desires.
Sure.
I want the Lord to bless you in each and every way. I want that for Brother Michael. I want that for myself. And I want that for every black man, every Mexican man, every family across this world.
That's right.
I want the Lord to bless them according to His will.
Yeah.
Give them the desires of their heart. But that's no longer what this is about.
No.
Without natural affection, saying, I want what you have, whether it hurts you, kills you, or ruins your life.
That's right.
We pick up bus kids so that they may not have that opportunity now, but the whole reason that we run the buses is because it is possible. And we know that it's possible through salvation, through them coming to know Christ, or we wouldn't run buses. They can have the opportunity. Y'all can, not right now, we're not running buses, but when we do, Sunday afternoon, show up to one of our services.
Show up and watch it.
I can promise you that I would say, I was going to say about 75%, 75%, or
I would say closer to 85, 90% of folks we pick up are definitely minority. Most of them are black.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's we're here saying that for the most part, we believe in equal opportunity.
Yes.
We are trying to see that in other people's lives. So this is not us being racist. This is just a biblical view of what we're seeing on the outside.
That's right. That's right. Well, guys, we went over a few minutes, but we do appreciate you tuning in. Also, we want to ask you, please, to be sure that you like, share, comment, review, subscribe, whatever it is you do on whatever platform that you're watching and paying attention to the podcast on. We do thank you for tuning in, and we do hope that you'll tune in again next week here on the Christian Construction Podcast.